today, ways to get onto Zoom. There are a few different ways to get onto Zoom. You can use your laptop, you can use your desktop, you can use a tablet or an iPad, and of course you can use your phone to get onto Zoom. And so I'm curious about the people who are in our classroom on what devices you are currently using right now. So if you are on a laptop or a desktop computer, can you raise your hand? Let me know you're on a laptop or a desktop. All right, I see Fred's hand. Thank you very much. I see Debbie's hand. Regina said desktop. Okay. Is there, if you happen to be on a tablet, an Android tablet or an iPad, go ahead and let me know. Raise your hand. Teddy, are you on an iPad or a tablet? Yeah, I see that. I see that hand right there. All right, excellent. And just out of curiosity, is anybody using their phone? Anybody on a phone today? Okay. Well, I will talk about different tips and tricks for all of those different devices, because you never know when you're in a tight spot and your computer's updating, you may need to use your phone. And so we'll cover all the different devices and talk about ways to look your best using all of those platforms. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, I'll just throw it out to the class. Did you come into this class with any questions, anything you wanted to get covered so that you can take away with you by the end of the class? If there's anything that's on your mind right now, please unmute yourself and let me know.
I have one, Teddy. The iPad camera is too good and every wrinkle shows. You have a very smooth skin.
Okay, all right. Well, yes, I mean that sometimes the resolution is too high. Sometimes technology is too good. So let's see. What I would suggest, Teddy, is there actually is a feature. You may want to check your video settings in Zoom, and there is a feature in the video settings, and I believe it says touch up my appearance. And so maybe that's something that you can go to. It could be like a magic eraser, I don't know. Or you may want to take some Vaseline and rub it on the camera so that you give yourself that soft look. Or you might want to position your iPad to where it's a little bit farther away from you, so people have to squint. Maybe those are the suggestions right off the top of my head.
Fantastic, thanks.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions as we move into our tips and tricks? So what I would like to let you know is that the things I'm going to be talking about today are things that I've developed through my experience. And so I call them best practices. They're certainly not hard and fast rules that you must do, because the best practices that I'm going to give you are very much like the old car commercials, in that your mileage may vary. So you are able to use what works for you and don't worry about the things that may not work for you. I'm just kind of sharing these things with you, and you're more than welcome to take with you what you will, what would be helpful for you. And so what we'll do is we will start by talking about just positioning yourself in front of the camera to start. And a good way to have a professional and a best practice type of appearance when you are on a class or a meeting or even a Zoom with family and friends. And usually the main rule of thumb that I like to say is, first of all, to identify where your camera is and know exactly where the camera is. If you are using a laptop or a desktop, that's probably a little bit easier to figure out, because more than likely, if you are using a desktop, then either you have your camera built into the monitor in a place that you can identify and know where it is, or maybe you have a camera that's just sitting on top of your monitor if you're using a desktop computer. If you're using a laptop, most likely that you can identify the camera as soon as you lift the screen for your camera. More often than not, the camera is right there in the center near the top of your screen on a laptop. But it's good to know where the camera is so that you can go ahead and position yourself accordingly in front of it. And usually what I like to recommend is that you position yourself to where you are in line with the camera. So where you're lined up, where you're eye to eye with the camera, as opposed to, maybe having it just a little bit higher than eye level and tilting it lower could be good. But for the most part, what I like to recommend is that you are lined up right in eyesight with your camera. And that can provide a look like I have right now, which is straight on to where you are centered and taking up most of the frame with your body as far as that goes. And usually what I like to recommend if you're using a desktop or a laptop or basically any device is to leave just a little bit of space between the top of your head and the top of your frame. You don't want to have too much empty space above you because there's actually two things. So if your camera was maybe tilted down just slightly, just like this, to where the top of you, so to where most of you is in frame, but the top of your head is cut off, that is just a little bit disconcerting for people who are watching on the meeting or class, because inherently we all know that the top of your head is still there, but it's just that we can't see it. So our brain just does a little bit of something, like questioning, like something isn't quite right. And so all you need to do is just that small adjustment so that the top of your head can be seen. And, sometimes you don't want to. I mean, I've got a lot of top of my head to show. So maybe I would prefer to have it obscured a little bit. But for having a professional look, it's best to have your entire self in the frame. And that also goes the other way. You may have seen people in classes or in meetings to where they have their camera tilted up, so that there is a lot of empty space up above them. And meanwhile, they end up looking like a floating head. Their entire body is gone and all you see is a head. And that can be a little concerning as well. Kind of like, well, where's the rest of their body? I don't know. I know it's there, but something is wrong. Or even this, to where it looks like they're kind of looking over their frame at you, like they're looking over the back fence. Hello, hey. And meanwhile, like I said, there's all this empty space up here, which does not make for a good balance. And so that's for desktops and laptops. If you happen to be on a tablet or a phone, it could be even more severe, because people on their phones are most likely moving around, or they're in a position where the phone is something that they're holding. And so they could get to a point where they're holding their phone in front and underneath them. And then if you do that, then you're in a situation like this, where maybe you can see their ceiling fan or their ceiling, and they are looking like this at you over their phone. And that is not the best look, because in this position, you have a very good chance of looking right up their nostrils. And so I would say that that's not flattering for anyone. So I would say certainly that is not a best practice. So if you happen to be on a tablet or a phone, remember the positioning. Now with a tablet and a phone, it is a little bit more difficult, or it's a little more challenging to identify exactly where your camera is. So that's something that you may want to look at as far as whatever device